Welcome to a new series, Light. Who is the light of the world? Let's have a quiz here. That's right. It's not Frosty, okay? It's not Frosty. We took that picture off of our front page, our show window there, and put the nativity scene. And I want to invite you next week. How many of you were University of Hawaii football fans? Were. How many of you are University of Hawaii football fans? They received a Hawaii Bowl berth on Christmas Eve, and some said as opposed to earned a Hawaii Bowl invitation. Well, grace is nothing about earning anything, right? Grace is all unmerited favor. We get what some people, what we don't deserve, what some people would say. So next week, in part 2 of our series, where we'll talk about real love, we're going to have Coach Nick Rolovich, along with Sean Withy-Allen, the team character coach and chaplain. Together, we're going to have a little grace group up here. And here's why we're doing it. We want you to invite sports fans. Coach Rolovich is not yet a believer. He hasn't crossed the line of faith, but he's close. And the strategy is I'm inviting him in because I'm a UH graduate and a football fan. And Coach Rolo was on the staff when Tony and I were chaplains of the team. Again, let me clarify, we're not chaplains under Coach Chow. Our reign, okay, I'm tired of hearing that question. What happened to the team? Listen, we were fired by Coach Chow when Coach Mack ended. But I like what God's doing in Nick Rolovich. I like what Withy is doing. And here's what I don't want you to do next week. Many of you have kids that play sports. Bring on a sports fan. I want to make this clear. Don't invite Christians from other churches, okay? Don't do that. Don't fill up these seats with people who already know Jesus, but fill them up with people who are searching and seeking, all right? Withy, why don't you stand? There's Sean, right here, Sean. So we're helping him plant a church. You don't see him, because he's got his shirt on, but pretty much his muscles would ripple out. And so our plan is to have Rolo here so that we feature him. We actually market the program a little bit, but also we get to expose him to a place where faith is alive. How many of you think that's a good plan? Now, here's your part in the game plan. You need to invite somebody who's a sports fan who doesn't know the Lord or maybe has fallen away from the Lord, okay? And we'll show you what a power of invitation does today in this locker room talk today, because we're going to talk about His light that's within you. Now, how many of you know Jesus? You know Jesus. Some of you may be here, you don't know Him yet, you know about Him. That's okay. Because stay with us in this whole Christmas journey, because you'll find that the Lord will reveal Himself to you. We're in the Gospel of John, chapter 1, and we'll start out with this, that God made us and gave us the gift of life. Life is the greatest gift of all. If we can't breathe, we can't enjoy anything life affords. Scripture says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through Him, and without Him was not anything made that was made. In Him was life, and the life was the light of men. So life is God's greatest gift to us, essentially. We get to breathe and continue to breathe only by God's gracious permission. Only by we forget that. We forget that God is the author and the giver of life. And Scripture says that the light of His life is among us. When He came as the babe in the manger and grew up, became God in the form of man for 33 and a half years, over 2,000 years ago, He walked among them, but here was the problem. The true light, which gives light to everyone, was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world was made through Him, yet the world did not know or recognize Him. He came to His own, and His own people did not receive Him. So the life of His light, even among us today in this Christmas season, is among us, but we often fail to respond. And here's the reason. He's among us. He's everywhere. But we don't recognize Him. Because we don't recognize Him, we don't receive Him. There's a move by atheists today and liberals to take Jesus out of Christmas. They've succeeded in taking prayer out of the public schools, the 10 Commandments out of many state capitals. And now they're saying it's happy holidays. Have you noticed? Have you noticed that what used to be Merry Christmas is now Happy Holidays? I've noticed in the last couple of years, especially this year, where places that I go to, They're saying happy holidays, and I refuse to say happy holidays back. I say Merry Christmas, and that's what you should say. Because we don't have Christmas and shopping and gift buying if it were not for the introduction of a celebration of the Christ child coming to this earth. Merry Christmas. See, so when I hear happy holidays, I know they mean well. I'm not trying to be a religious bigot here, but I'm just saying Merry Christmas. This past week, I was telling the earlier service, I took my car into Midas Muffler. I'm going to say the name of the business. I've taken my car to them to have my oil changed, my tires. I used to change my own oil and do that. I'm older now, and I don't want to get all that toxic stuff through my pores anymore. After I Googled stuff and read about how that can be bad for you. So I let it be bad for them. I take the car to them, and then as I picked up my car, the manager was complaining to me that they've got a mandate now nationally that Midas Muffler will work on Christmas Day. And of course the question was, who the heck changes their mufflers on Christmas Day? You see how subtle it is. Little by little, there's been a move to take Christ out of Christmas and Jesus out of holidays. The root word is holy day. And so we don't recognize him because we've removed him. And so how can we receive him about whom this holiday is about? And so we have this problem that in December there's more suicides and divorces and drug usage and premature death than any other time in the year, December. So you go shopping and you see the lights, you hear, happy holidays, right? Chestnuts roasting on an open fire. You say all of that. Guess what? You know why people look happy a lot of times? Because they don't want to be with their families. They've got all kind of memories about broken marriages, abuse, and everything. They just drug up. They medicate. And so you have these horrible accidents on the roads. People have to drug up in order to go to parties to look up. But it's a horrible time for many people. We know as ministers because we're very busy during this time of year. And the comment is, you have no idea what's going on in my family, in my marriage, among my kids, but I got to put on a happy face because I got to go to party. Because you take Jesus out of his birthday, you're going to have darkness. And it's up to us. Jesus says we are the light of the world. We are a city set on a hill, and it's time for us to shine. Can I hear an amen, everybody? Amen. So let the light out. He's among us. Now, here's what happens. When we believe in and receive him, we see his glory, his divine light. You know what the word glory means? The weight of his brilliance and of his shining, of his light. His glory. Look at here. The passage continues. But to all who did receive him, who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. And the word became flesh and dwelt among us. Emmanuel. And we have seen his glory, or the weight of his brilliance, glory as of the only Son from the Father, full of grace and truth. Think about it. Jesus became fully man. This is the Christmas story. Fully God. He was fully God all the way up until Christmas. Then he came as the babe, a human, God in the form of man. 33 and a half years to show us what God would be like if he were in the form of a human being. Jesus, God with us. Emmanuel, God incarnate. That's Christmas. And we're trying to take him out of the season? Give me a break. Because that light is so powerful. See, when we believe on his name and receive him into our hearts by faith, then we see the light. And then when we receive him, we receive the light of his Spirit in us that changes us. But here's how it works. First we believe, then we see. A lot of people out there who are very smart, atheists, academicians, intellectuals, analyticals, they say, well, first let me see, and then I'll believe. But God, by common grace, puts in our hearts a faith to believe in our Creator. And he gives us Jesus, God in the form of flesh, who came and lived among us, and he now lives on this earth, and he lives in every one of us by his Spirit, the light of his presence that lives in us. And when we let him out, he is among this world everywhere. Here's the problem we have with Christians today. We hide the light. People go happy holidays, we go happy holidays back. Here's a good exercise for you. Say Merry Christmas when they say Happy Holidays. I've been doing that and I wait for the shock effect. It's almost they look at me, don't you know now that it's politically incorrect to say that? Stupid! Right? No, man. We don't have all this gift mania without Christmas and the beauty of the spirit of giving. So let the light out. Let the light out. And what happens is when we receive the Lord inside of us, the light of His Spirit changes us, sanctifies us. The dark places in our lives, because all of us, when we came to the Lord, we were dark. And when Jesus comes into our hearts, by His Spirit, guess what? We change. Things happen. And so, let Him do it. Let Him do it. I'm gonna read to you here from 2 Corinthians, and I'm going to call up our guest today. It says, the Lord is the Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty, there is freedom. And we all, with unveiled face, beholding the glory of the Lord, are being transformed into the same image from one degree of glory to another. For this comes from the Lord, who is the Spirit. So once by faith we believe, we receive, His glory lives in us. And as we build a relationship with Him through prayer and being in His Word, the light of His presence transforms us. We have here in this church people, ex-murderers. We have every conceivable form of sin in our congregation of 4,000 people. And before they became part of this congregation, there was darkness. No one's perfect. And we're being changed from glory to glory to glory. And the more we commune with and cooperate with the work of the Lord, His Word, and His Spirit working in us, the light in us gets brighter and brighter. I want to have you welcome to the platform Matsu Thornton here. And this is what I'm going to talk about here. Matsu, why don't you come? Matsu is, some of you're thinking, why am I clapping? I don't even know who the guy is. When Rolovich comes next week, I'll clap for him because, he helped us win a little bit again. But Matsu is what we're talking about when the light hits you. A little background. He's a product of Punahou School. I'm a product of Farrington, okay? And the difference between Punahou and Farrington is like heaven and hell. He's a genius by IQ. And being a product of Punahou School, he is now an educator, inventor, innovator, and entrepreneur working at the University of Hawaii. In fact, he's part of our Cityside site, and his whole lab comes now because they've seen a certain light that's come on in and through him. Now, Matsu, his work is now being sought after by the United States Navy and Harvard University. He's 33 years old. Now, I don't understand it. Tell us why again. What is it that you do?
Well, really what we do is renewable energy research. So we research renewable energy, how to modernize the power grid. And it has to be God's work, really, that brought the Navy into it, because I was doing cybersecurity for just our devices in the power grid. And, the Navy came through and saw our work, and I presented it, and they kind of like whispered to each other, hey, we really need your technology for our sensors for the ship. So that's something that's coming up now, and that's kind of exciting.
Renewable energy.
Renewable energy.
Light. Yeah? How appropriate as we start this series. So they don't have what you've made.
They're looking for a solution, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
I talked to Dr. Danny Yamashiro this past week. I had lunch with him. He said, Matsu Thornton? We just had him up at Harvard. The faculty wants to engage what he's created. Isn't that cool? I mean, let me tell you why. These are the kind of guys that are taking Jesus out of Christmas. Did you know that? These smart, analytical, intellectual, liberal, Punahou educated people. These are the guys that are saying, Happy Holidays.
He's right. Well,
You didn't see the light because you were living a double life. And there was a whole double life. Tell us about the other life that you were living parallel to this one.
so at a young age, when I was 15, I got into drugs. So I didn't realize how much of an impact that was going to have on me. So for 16 years, I've been a drug addict.
Because he's 33. So from 15 to 31.
15 to
Yeah,
31,
okay.
yeah. So I really had lost hope in myself because I tried everything. I tried everything. I tried the rehabs. I tried the doctors. I tried every single conceivable, like, human thing possible to try and overcome my addiction, and I just couldn't do it. And I knew that it was going to lead to destruction of my life. I had a wife and daughter. I have a wife and daughter. And I got in trouble. I got busted because I put drugs over everything else. I would buy drugs before I would buy food. You know, I sold drugs so I could maintain my drug habit.
And nobody knew.
Yeah, well, I knew.
Oh, God knew, yeah.
And God knew. I didn't think about that. I grew up without God. I grew up without God. My family wasn't religious. My dad kind of instilled it in me that, you know, it didn't make sense logically to believe in God because of, you know, we have science nowadays, right? So that's what I believe. And so I got arrested and I was in jail. And
But this is after 16 years.
yeah, so I'm sitting there in my cell thinking, without my daughter's 6 months old, and I've been just torn away from my wife and daughter. And I was thinking to myself that I'm not going to be seeing the light of day for a long, long time. I was facing 15 to 20 years in federal prison. So they gave me a chance to come out to rehab again. And I already lost hope in myself that I was going to get better. But, you know, the only reason why I really did it was because I had this little hope that somehow, some way, if I do really well at this, I'm just going to have a brief time that I can be with my wife and daughter and just hold my wife and daughter, even for a brief moment, before I have to go away to prison. But I didn't know that God had different plans for me. So I went through that, and then I joined the lab, and I started doing research. And, you know, everything in my life up until now, you know, I can get it so far. You know, it's my plans and designs. This is what I imagine success to be, right? Is I plan for it, I work hard for it, and then I build it myself. And I could always get it so far, and then it would fall apart. And this was happening over and over again in my life, and I just felt like I was a complete failure in a lot of ways. I went to rehab, and they told me, you know, there's nothing human that can save you from your drug addiction. You need to find, they didn't call it God. They said you need to find a higher power, and you need to pray to it. And I didn't know what they meant. I didn't really have anything to lose either, so I remember this. I was just kind of like, you know, hey, you know, God, I don't know if you're there. I don't know if you're even real, but if you are, give me a sign, you know, give me a sign, and maybe I'll believe. And I didn't really see anything at first. That this was a while ago, and I didn't know what was going to happen. It's been a long journey. Like last year, well, this happened maybe 2 years ago now. I was in jail for several months, and then I went to rehab for another year. And through this hard time, it was the hardest thing I ever had to do in my life. And I just struggled through the whole thing. And I just had my wife and my daughter they said, you have to pray for other people. So I figured, okay, I know who I can pray for. I can pray to help my wife and daughter and to heal our family and to help us with our situation. And, you know, I didn't know what spirituality was. I didn't know how it was going to save me, and I was in darkness. I didn't have faith in myself. I thought, this is just one more try that's not going to work. You know, I just want to hold my wife and my daughter again and then just go to prison and deal with it. because I was going to be a drug addict forever. But last year at Christmas, around this time, I went to a Christmas party with my mom. So this is where it all started. I went to a Christmas party with my mom, and while I was there, I met this guy. His name was Guy, by the way. Guy.
Guy Akasaki, he's
Guy
an
Akasaki,
advisor to our
right.
board of directors, founding member of our church.
So, Guy owns a company that does renewable energy. So we got into a conversation about renewable energy of all things. It didn't start with God. It didn't start with a conversation of God at all. We had an awesome conversation. It was really great. And after the party, he comes up to me and gives me his card. He says, "Hey, you know, that was a really awesome conversation." And I remember this party that I just saw this glow about this person and this joy and happiness, and I didn't understand what it was that I was looking at. I didn't know what I was feeling, but after that night, I emailed him back, and I said, you know, "Hey, look, I don't want to make you feel weird or anything, but you seem like the kind of person that I would really like to be like, and I kind of look up to you, and I would really like to follow up on that lunch, if you don't mind." And he actually didn't respond for a little while because I sent it to the wrong email address, the one he doesn't check all the time. So I was like, okay, well, maybe it wasn't meant to be. But he did respond to me. He responded to me and took me out to lunch. And, you know, I had this feeling like, you know, maybe he wanted me to like be more involved with his company or something like that. So I felt the need to tell him. I was like, "Hey, you know, I'm facing all these legal problems, so I just needed to let you know that." And he's like, "Oh, okay. Well, we all have our problems, and that's okay." And I was like, "Okay. Wow, okay. Well, it's good." So he asked me a little bit about my spirituality and my journey, and we talked about like some of my struggles and stuff, and didn't really talk too much about it. But he said, "Hey, you know, there's this great group of guys that might be a good influence on your life. They're about 10 years older than you. We meet every week for lunch, and we just talk about things." And he didn't tell me what it was. He didn't tell me it was a grace group or anything. But I was like, "Yeah, sure, all right, you know." So I'll go to lunch with some people. So I went to lunch to the Vineyard Zippies, right? And he's like, "Okay, here, this is what the people look like." And I guess he asked Pastor Norman to I think I sent the selfie to the team. But Pastor Norman sent a selfie of them at the Grace Group, and yeah.
Because he didn't know what we look like.
Yeah,
You walk into
this is us, you know, come and meet us in the back table. So I was like, okay, sure, you know. So I come over there and I sit down with this group of guys.
You can take the picture down.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm sitting there, and my life has been dark. It's been really dark. Right at this moment, I've been away from my wife and my child for almost 2 years. I've been without them, just waiting and hoping and working to try and just get them back, even for a little while. And I'm facing like a huge amount of time in prison, and I'm just struggling to just keep afloat in this. And I feel like, you know, the wall is just closing in on me, and it was a really dark time. And I'm looking at all these people around the table, and I have my own idea of like what success is supposed to look like, and I know business people, and I've always thought it was by self-propulsion. You know, you work really hard, and you push yourself to do all these things. And I know business people, and some of them are really successful, but these people around the table had something different. It was a glow, it was a happiness, and they also had success. So it was like, you know, vice president of First Hawaiian Bank, the other guy. Yeah, and then
He's actually running the camera and taking a picture of you now. Yeah.
Hi, guy. Yeah. And you know, Danford, he's another guy, American Savings. All these Ben Geese and these people, they just had this like awesome glow about them. And what they were telling me was, you know, as each one of them introduced themselves and were explaining what they do and stuff, they were like, yeah, well, actually, you know, the way we do it is we just put God first, we have faith, and then everything else follows from that, and that's how we're successful, and it's great. And I'm like, really? I don't know about this. And then I was thinking to myself, man, maybe I've been wrong my whole life. Maybe I've been wrong about this. And something came over me, like, we were talking about Jesus and how it all works, and I just felt the light like just flood into me after that. And I realized from that moment just what I'd been doing wrong. And it really changed my whole life. That moment, nothing changed, but everything changed. Everything changed in my whole life. I started doing things differently. Then now all the right people started coming into my life. All of the right situations were happening. God was starting to put all of the pieces of my life back together. And it didn't have anything to do with my plans, because my plans didn't work before. They would get so far and they'd fall apart. They'd get so far and they'd fall apart. And this was like over and over again, I'd do this. And it wasn't working. And now all of a sudden, everything's working. And I'm just like astounded. It's just amazing, the difference. And I'm starting to feel joy again. The light's coming back into my life.
Now let me interject right here for time's sake, because we're going to have you respond to this physically before the end of the service. It's been a year now. It's not all tied up in a bow tie. No. It's not the before and after picture. You're loving Jesus, affecting people, as we'll see at our Cityside site. He's got his workers coming now, and he's serving, running the soundboard. He led somebody to the Lord, and that person's on the soundboard now, 1 year later, and yet you could be headed to prison.
Yes.
And your wife.
My wife's going to prison.
It's complicated.
Yeah.
But yet you see the hand of God in the process that keeps getting delayed, because tell us about the weirdness of the judge and the prosecutor and everybody else.
So I was facing 15 years or 20 years, and everybody was telling me, my lawyer and all of the people were like, yeah, well, this is just the guidelines, this is what you're going to face, and this is just how it works, that this is what you should expect. It's not going to really change much. And I didn't realize what the power of God really was, but I had court the other day, and God's presence was in the courtroom with us.
This would be Wednesday.
Yeah, and God really is the God that has the power to move the hearts and the minds of kings. And it was just amazing. We had the prosecutor who didn't feel like a prosecutor at that time. It felt like he was my lawyer, the way that he was talking in court. I couldn't believe it. It had me in tears, the prosecutor's speech. The judge, my lawyer, everybody was having an open discussion in court about how we're going to handle this situation so that we can benefit this family. We can let me finish my degree and let me finish my project. I couldn't believe what was happening. It's God's hand on it, and I couldn't believe it. And God is so awesome.
He's deserving of a massively long sentence. And make a long story short, they're trying to figure out how to get him off without getting him off, because he has to pay a price for justice's sake. But they've seen the reformation over the delayed sentence. This is why you send people to prison. Not to punish them, but to see their lives change. And they're going, it's already happened.
Yeah.
It's not just he used Jesus, he's successful in the marketplace. His wife's coming out. Here's a complicated picture, let me tell this. His wife, who also could be headed to prison, got mad at him because he led her into the drug business, and now, because she's mad at him, has an affair with somebody else. But see, now Jesus enters the scene, so she invites this other guy who, ironically, his name is not Guy, but Adam. Adam. She comes in with Adam, and you bring your unchurched father and mother-in-law, and last week, they're all there.
It was amazing, yeah. I was standing at the
They
soundboard.
have no clue
seeing
what
my
this
dad
is,
laugh.
except the light's going on because it's coming out of you.
Yeah, and in court, I said, you know, I don't deserve any of the things that are happening to me. This is after everybody said their piece, and I said, you know, what I really deserve right now for what I did is to be in prison.
Okay, wait, just stop. You said that
I said
to
that.
them.
I said that in court. Yeah.
Yeah, don't say that in court. I mean, really, I'm serious.
What I said was, you know, everything that's happened, all the good things that have happened, all the wonderful connections that I've made, all the wonderful people in my life that have been working to help me and to work with my family, it's all by the grace of God that I have this. And, you know, it's by no other means that any of this could have happened. It's not my plan. It's way more awesome than anything that I could even imagine, that all of these pieces have fit together in the way that they have. There's no other explanation for it. I could never plan for something like this. I could never plan for the Navy to come and become involved. That was an accident. Not really an accident, it was God. Yeah. I know that. And all of these other pieces, all the people that have come into my life, all of the support, my family coming back here and coming to church, God has just touched their hearts, and it's amazing.
We go to Cityside. I mean, we can't have a more appropriate guy handling the soundboard than a guy like him who's an engineer, a kind of a renewable energy. Parting shot. I mean, it's so much. I mean, we see people in the Cityside congregation. I mean, there's a whole group of them now because you've let the light out of your life. A parting shot to us today as we start the series.
So really, my life was in darkness for a really, really long time, and I didn't even know. I didn't know what I was missing. And it took somebody that had the light of Jesus in their hearts to reach their hand out to me and just be my friend. And I would encourage each and every one of you to share the light that Jesus has given you with somebody else. There's people that are looking for it. There's people like me out there that really need it. And all they're waiting for is just a hand. Be their friend. Invite them to Grace Group. Do it gently. And you have the power to help somebody. Even if it's just one person. It changed my life forever, and I really appreciate Guy for doing that for me.
The power of a group, the power of one lunch, Guy Akasaki with Matsu. An invitation where Guy doesn't even show up, so we have to take that ridiculous selfie and walk him into Zippy's with the phone. Matsu, turn to your left. This is what we look like. And really, when he received the Lord, it was a normal day. We were drinking coffee, and he prayed to receive Christ over Loco Moco. That's the power of Grace Group. Matsu, thank you so much. You haven't just not received the light for yourself. You've shared the light for others. Matsu Thornton. As Pastor Paris comes to lead us to a very unique response time that we did on Saturday night, last night, and our earlier service today, I remind you that the crosses that you see here and back there is referred to in Scripture as the tree. In America, we've come to worship another tree, but the Bible says the tree is the cross. Pastor Paris.
Thanks for joining us. Visit our website at pearlside.org for more.